Finding random frames in Barbie until it's ugly. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Gorgeous. I love the set design of this film. Obviously, the attention to detail in this movie is just insane, and there are plenty of other videos you can go watch on YouTube about why they chose to design things the way they did. But what I'm interested in is the lighting, because this is inside of a studio, and the lighting apparently was done with soft suns and airy sky panels. And so the soft suns are going to be more pointed hard lights, and they are going to be creating these hard shadows that you can see right here, basically mimicking the sun, the more orange sun. And the sky panels are going to be just filling everything in. That's where you're going to get the general ambient light. Not ugly. Let's go towards the end. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's pretty nice. So here we can see that Barbie is primarily being backlit by the sun, or that soft sun most likely, and then filled in probably with an LED light very evenly, because you can't see many shadows on her face, and that's a very nice soft look. What is interesting about this setup though is that if I go to the reverse shot of this lady, let me see if I can just go back a little bit. Okay, here we go. And what's interesting about this shot is you can see that she is also being backlit by the sun, as you can tell by the light around her edges. And that is interesting because it's unrealistic, right? If you were outside in a real outside setting, the sun would not be backlighting both of these people. It would only be backlighting one of them. And the reason that this is happening in this film is because the director and the DP chose to light it like this. They chose to make the decision to always backlight with the sun in Barbie Land, only in Barbie Land, not in the outside world, because Barbie Land is supposed to be perfect, and a lot of cinematographers consider backlighting with the sun to be more of the perfect kind of lighting instead of front lighting with the sun, because the sun's a pretty harsh source of light. So not an ugly shot. Let's go back towards the beginning. 1, 2, 3. Okay, yeah, basically the same thing. Backlit by the sun and then filled in with a very soft light. You can barely see any shadows on her face right here. And that's interesting because you won't typically see that kind of a lighting style in movies today, because it takes away some of the depth of the image. It takes away some of the contrast. Even though there is still some contrast in the shot, you have the highlights of her hair, you have the midtones, and you have darker parts of this person's hair back here. But I think what makes this okay in this situation is that the color is doing a lot of the work when it comes to the depth. As you can see, when you put blues in front of pinks and greens, that kind of has the illusion of depth as well. It's a contrast in and of itself, even though it's not necessarily a contrast in terms of the lighting. It's a contrast in terms of color. And I think that helps to just make the shot more interesting and less flat than if the colors were all bland and gray and brown. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, this part of the movie is great. I love this transition sequence because all of this, or at least most of this, is practical. I'm not sure if all of it's practical or not, but a lot of this is practical, and I will try to find BTS images of this part of the movie right here. And I love it when movies do practical effects because honestly, it just looks better. Okay, not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Okay, this one's interesting because as opposed to what I was saying before, she is not being backlit by the sun, she is being frontlit by the sun. And you can see that the light is a lot more harsh on her face. You can see the shadow below her nose, you can see that she has more contrast on her face. And that is interesting because I think this is Weird Barbie, and she is being lit differently than the other Barbies in Barbie Land. And I think that was obviously an intentional choice to make her just seem less perfect than the rest of the gang. And that just goes to show you that lighting choices matter for character. It's not just about making a pretty shot, it's about lighting in a way that emphasizes certain character traits about the character you are showing on screen. Always remember that. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. That's a really cool shot. Again, most of this is the practical set. I think probably all of this is practical. All of this area down here is probably practical. But if I had to guess, I would guess all of this back here is not real. In fact, most of this, I know for a fact that these buildings are miniatures that they filmed separately and then added in post-production. They composited these buildings on top of this image. So all of this back here is, it might be a green screen or it might just be the backdrop you can see back there, and then they placed these buildings there in post. This is probably just a set extension. These are probably not real people. But honestly, a gorgeous shot. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, here's a perfect example of the difference between Barbie Land and the real world. If you've seen this movie, you know that Barbie goes to the real world, and obviously the real world looks a lot different than Barbie Land. The most extreme example of this difference in look is the color grading. The colors are just way more desaturated. Even the pinks are just more desaturated. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Oh wow, this one's really pretty. I love shots with this typical V-shaped depth when you're just shooting into a corner. It's better than just if the camera was over here shooting directly into this flat wall. But what's very interesting about this shot is the like highlight bloom you see on these whatever that is, and the table and her hair. It's blooming. It's a highlight thing. I don't know if they're doing this in post. They're probably not just doing this in post. They probably have a filter, like a glimmer glass filter over the lens or something right here. And what glimmer glass does is it just does what it does. It blooms the highlight, so it spreads the highlight across the image more, as you can see it is doing right here. And again, this is a technical choice by the filmmakers to enhance the story, because this part of the story is kind of more dreamlike. It is more, I don't know. I guess it deals with the afterlife a little bit more, because this character, spoiler alert, is not supposed to be alive, I think, or something. She's supposed to be a ghost or something. I don't know. But anyway, it's a technical decision. It makes the image look more ethereal, more heaven-like, I guess. Yeah, that's a good term. It makes it look more like heaven. And I think, you know, that's cool. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have my man Ryan Gosling being a man, and that's great for him. Love his choice of outfit here. Very manly. So after looking at the shot, I think we can see a little bit of something that I've heard the DP talk about before, one of the problems he had when shooting shots in Barbie Land, and that is the reflection of the light off of all of these pink surfaces, because I'm sure you've heard a million times that Barbie used so much pink paint that the world ran out of pink paint or whatever, and I'm sure you don't want to hear it again, but you did just hear it again, so get over it. Because all of this set is pink, when you're shooting lights at a colored object, a lot of that light will bounce off of that colored object and reflect that color back onto your actors. And so that's not a good thing if you want to have natural looking skin tones. And I think we can see a little bit of that here, because he is pretty close to this pink building, so a lot of the light is probably bouncing off this and hitting his face a little bit. His skin tones just look a little tad bit pink to me. A lot of that can be fixed in color grading, obviously, but to get a more natural skin tone right out of the camera, the DP did something pretty ingenious, and that is he kind of draped the set that is off camera in a neutral gray fabric. And so most of the set actually is covered in that gray fabric that's off camera, and so the light is going to be bouncing off of that gray fabric instead of the pink material, and so you're going to get a lot less light bleed from that material. And that again creates not an ugly shot. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that is a cool set. And one thing you'll notice about the set design is that they don't use any blacks or whites in the set design. All of the colors in the set design, in Barbie Land at least, are just colors. They're not black or white, and that creates a very, guess what, colorful looking set. Let's go back towards the very beginning, see if we can find one of those shots of the opening. 1, 2, 3. Yes, perfect. Again, you have backlight, fill, and what is the thing that I always talk about? What is the thing I always harp on in these videos? That is color harmony. Even if you don't have much color in a shot, you can still have color harmony. It is very brown and orange. Everywhere you look, there's brown. Everywhere. Brown, 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 orange, 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 orange. It is a very harmonious shot in terms of the coloring, and that makes a great shot in my opinion. That's like 70% of what makes a shot look good in some cases. The only other thing I'll talk about with this shot is that this entire sequence was filmed in front of an LED volume, kind of the same kind of thing they used for The Mandalorian. So all of this back here is just an LED screen with a plate on top of it, and this LED screen is part of what's lighting the scene. So it's not all of what's lighting the scene. It's being augmented probably, again, with the airy soft sun on her, but a lot of the light you see back here, maybe right here, this ambient light is probably being lit with the LED screen here. Not an ugly shot. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Yep, great shot. Love the color design of this set. It honestly reminds me kind of something like the Holy Mountain. I'll show a shot of the Holy Mountain right here, and you can see what I mean. Next shot. 1, 2, 3. Oh. So the first thing I don't like about this image is the overexposure. Her skin tones are definitely overexposed in some places. And then also the light which is coming from above is just creating a kind of unattractive shadow formation on her face right here. And that's just not something you typically see, and it really makes her nose stand out. Again, this is not saying that the shot is ugly. Here's the shot in its entirety. I think it kind of works to be running through a light that overexposes you for only a second in a longer clip, but as a singular frame, I don't like this frame, because I would not choose to light someone like this if they were not moving through it. Like and subscribe and tell me what movie you want me to do next. Goodbye.